Lillahi ta'ala. Let's continue in the Lucid Word. The author says, Section 10, the integrals of the obligatory ghusl and what necessitates it. Yani, what makes it obligatory? The only thing about this title here is that it could have been said, what makes obligatory ghusl, what necessitates obligatory ghusl and its integrals? Because that's the order that the Shaykh gives it to us. This title is the reverse of the presentation of the information. There's two things there. The integrals of the ghusl and what necessitates it. Among the conditions for the validity of the prayer is purification from major ritual impurity. Ritual means religious. Major as opposed to minor. That's a condition too, though. This is one of the conditions. To be clear of major, that means bigger religious impurity. Al-Hadath al-Akbar. By performing the obligatory whole body wash. It says, by performing the obligatory whole body wash. So the translators chose to translate it this way. Whole body wash. Whole means entire. So ghusl is a bath. It doesn't have to be a shower. Whether you pour the water over yourself or you immerse yourself in the water, as long as all the conditions are fulfilled, then the ghusl is valid. Or tayammum, yani, or by performing tayammum when one is unable to perform the obligatory wash or bath. There are 5 occurrences, 5 phenomenon which render the whole body wash an obligation. 2 of these 3 events apply to both men and women. The first occurrence is the emission of the person's own mani, ejaculated fluid or seminal fluid. If you don't want to commit to saying that women have seminal fluid, then you can say ejaculated fluid. But I'm inclined just to say seminal fluid for men and women, but that's not going to be standard the way people talk. Emission here means for mani to reach the outside of a man's penis, the outside of a virgin's vulva, or the part of a non-virgin woman's vulva that is apparent when she squats on her feet to relieve herself. Okay. So emission here, yani, the exiting, the coming out, it means for the mani, for the seminal fluid, to reach the outside of a man's penis. So if he felt it coming, then he grabbed himself so that it doesn't come out. And then it went back and never came out, then he does not have to make a ghusl. Or to reach the outside of a virgin's vulva. Or the part of a non-virgin woman's vulva that is apparent when she squats on her feet to relieve herself. Yani, they differentiated between the virgin woman and the deflowered woman in terms of where the ejaculated fluid has to reach. Also, they differentiated between them in performing the ghusl. So now I just read what's here twice. And I'm going to say now, when this woman performs a ghusl, or when a woman performs ghusl, what's she obligated to wash of that area? Then they say, if she's a virgin woman, then it's enough for her to wash whatever appears. And if she's a deflowered woman, then she has to wash whatever would appear if she were to squat. Otherwise, if the mani, the ejaculated fluid, did not reach the foregoing points, then it does not necessitate the obligatory wash or obligatory bath. The semen is known by its signs, male or female, same signs. It exits in spurts, gushing out one spurt after another. It exits with pleasure, and it smells like dough when wet and like egg white when dry. It smells like dough when wet or like pollen, like dough or like pollen, and like egg white when dry. When any of these three signs are present, the substance is many. Hence, it is not a condition for all the signs to occur. The second occurrence requiring ghusl is sexual intercourse, which is defined as inserting the glands of the penis or its equivalent size-wise for a person deprived of it in a vagina or an anus, even if no ejaculation occurs. So here, when it says in a vagina or an anus, that could be summarized further in a private part, then it covers both. And by leaving it open like that, then that would include even an animal, and even a dead person, and that's the case. And also here, I'm not sure what's in the Arabic, but could be here a also instead of the a glands of the penis. Then it's also going to include animal, because who has to perform the ghusl? The penetrator and the penetrated. Both of them have to perform ghusl, but not a dead person. You don't have to give a dead person a ghusl because of such a penetration. You just give a dead person a ghusl for dying, not for something else. The following three occurrences are specific to women. The first is menses, which is the blood emitted from the uterus of a woman, not due to illness nor childbirth. Yes. And when we say that the menses makes ghusl obligatory, what's most exact is that the cessation of the menses is what makes the ghusl obligatory, not the menses itself. The minimum duration of menses is 1 day and 1 night, and the maximum duration is 15 days. We've gone over menses classes before. Then he said right here what I just told you. The termination of menses necessitates the obligatory wash. So I think bath is a better word than wash. The second occurrence is postpartum bleeding, which is the blood emitted from the uterus of a woman after giving birth. Yani, postpartum bleeding is concentrated menstrual blood. The minimum duration of postpartum bleeding is a moment, meaning any blood that exists. And the maximum duration is 60 days. The termination of postpartum bleeding necessitates the obligatory bath. The third occurrence that's specific to women is childbirth, even if no wetness accompanies the birth of the child. Yani, even if the child was born without blood. So the case is that usually when the baby is born, that's immediately followed by bleeding. Had the baby been born without bleeding, she would have to take a ghusl. But if the baby was born and then she bled immediately, she's still going to have to take a ghusl, but it has to be after the bleeding. And why does the baby, yani the delivery, why does the delivery make ghusl obligatory? And that's even if that was miscarriage. And even if what came out was a blood clot or flesh clump. Why does this make the ghusl obligatory? because the origin of this is ejaculated fluid. It was coagulated, ejaculated fluid. So when it came out, it was like the emission of ejaculated fluid. So it made ghusl obligatory. This concludes the 5 occurrences that necessitate the obligatory ghusl. The integrals of the whole body wash, yani the bath, are 2. Now I'm thinking too, would you say I took a bath if you didn't wash your whole body? I don't think so. It seems strange to me. The integrals of the whole body wash of the bath are 2. The first integral is the intention to remove, to lift, the major ritual impurity, or the like, yani, or such an intention, some intention like that, such as intending to perform the obligatory ghusl. That's a valid intention. So what's the first intention here? To lift the major ritual impurity. That's valid intention. Or what's another intention? To perform obligatory ghusl. When we say make valid intention, does that mean formulate a, a declaration in your heart? Formulate a declaration in your heart and then imagine yourself uttering that in to yourself. No. It's very important that to know that the intention takes place in an instant. You don't have to stop and think, say now, and yani, without saying with your tongue. Now I perform obligatory ghusl. The meaning here is this is what crosses your heart, to lift the impurity, or to do an obligatory ghusl, or something like that. It's just like when you do a good deed, what your intention might be. Your intention might be to obey Allah, or your intention might be to seek the reward, or something like that. Or your intention might be compliance. Uh-huh. You said there's something they call body bath. What they mean by that is that they wash everything on the body except the head and hair on the head. Basically everything from the neck down. I can see that, yani, if someone said I took a bath, could be that he doesn't wash his head, for example, maybe, and doesn't put his head underwater, for example. But if a person's not, if a person's just going to wash his face, and let's say wash his chest and his armpits, let's say something like that, I don't think you call that taking a bath. But if he's going to submerge himself in the water, pretty much aim for washing his body in general, then I think that's what they call a bath. That's why I think the word bath is better here. Okay, so, or to be permitted to pray. That's another intention. Intending to make prayer permissible. This is what crosses your heart. Therefore, merely intending to wash or clean the body is insufficient because that's not a worship. The intention must accompany washing the first part of the body. That means you can't be heedless when the water touches your body. So your ghusl is going to start when 2 things are happening at the same time. Your mindfulness of your intention and the water touching you. Anything washed before the intention is disregarded. The second integral is to wash the apparent parts of the entire body. Or here, the outer. To wash the outer parts of the entire body with pure and purifying water. Outer That includes the plates between the two buttocks cheeks. Because if one were to squat, that becomes part of the outer body. Same thing for the deflowered woman who squats. So what appears becomes part of the outer body. Outer body does not include in the mouth, in the ears, in the nose, and definitely does not include under the eyelids. The outer parts of the entire body with pure and purifying water also includes what is beneath the foreskin of an uncircumcised man. One would be obligated to pull that skin back so that the water reaches what's below it, i.e., the skin and the inside and outside of the hair, as opposed to wudu. In wudu, you don't have to get the inside of the beard. In ghusl, you have to get inside all the hair, even if the hair were thick, i.e., regardless of it being thin or thick. Any question? So the non-virgin woman would have to squat when making ghusl? No, she doesn't have to squat. She just has to wash whatever would appear if she were to squat. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Section 11, clarifying the conditions for the validity of purification and the rules of tayammum. The conditions of the conditions of valid purification, be it wudu or ghusl, are 5. All right, so really quick here. Question: what is purification? Define for me, please, purification. 10, 9. He said purification is to be clear from major and minor ritual impurities. No. 8, 7, 6. Said the act of cleaning oneself from spiritual impurities. No. Using pure and purifying water to lift minor and major hadath and najas on a state of being able to do acts of worship. No, 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 no. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Purification is removing religious impurity. Lifting religious impurity. Removing physical filth. Or what has their significance? Or what has their appearance? That's purification. Purification is lifting religious impurity, removing physical filth. What has their significance? Or what has their appearance? That's 4 things. He says here the conditions of valid purification. Purification is 4 things. Tahara. Then right there after that, he just told you something. Be it wudu or ghusl, but that's just some of purification. That's not all of purification. So lifting religious impurity. What's that? Wudu or ghusl. Removing physical filth. What's that? Removing dog filth, pig filth, removing the urine of a baby boy, removing any other filth. It might be detectable filth or undetectable filth. Sometimes it's excused filth, so you don't have to remove it. That includes istinja. Istinja is removal of filth. So purification is lifting religious impurity, removal of physical filth, or what has their significance. That's like tayammum, because tayammum replaces wudu and ghusl, and istinja by wiping, because it leaves a trace. It's permissible for you to leave that trace. So purification is lifting religious impurity, removing physical filth, or whatever has their significance, the significance of those two. Or the last one, what has their appearance, like refreshing your wudu. You made wudu and you prayed with this wudu and you never broke it. Sunnah for you to refresh it without breaking it. So that's neither of the first two, but it does appear like one of them. Or when you make ghusl for Jumu'ah, that's not an obligatory ghusl. That appears, that has the appearance of the first one. So all of that is purification. That's Imam an-Nawawi's definition. رفع الحدث أو إزالة النجس أو ما في معناهما أو على صورتهما. So the conditions of valid purification. Now you know what purification is. If I ask you again, inshallah, you'll give me the right answer. Be it wudu or ghusl, which that's only removing or lifting religious impurity. When we talk about wudu and ghusl, that's just lifting religious impurity. There's still other aspects of purification. The conditions of valid purification are 5. The first is Islam. Therefore, non-Muslims' purification from the minor and the major ritual impurities is not valid. Except what? What's the exception to this rule? He said the non-Muslims' purification from the minor and major ritual impurities is not valid. Yani, that's true, but this sentence here. Therefore, non-Muslims' purification is not valid. That much here from minor and major ritual impurities. My question doesn't include that. What's the exception to this? 5, 4, 3, 2. He said, excused impurity? No. The ghusl of the non-Muslim wife. If a Muslim man married a Jewish or Christian woman, when she finished her, the Jew or Christian wife's ghusl, yes. When she finishes her menses, he can't have intercourse with her before she takes a ghusl. What's meant here is what looks like a ghusl. So that's from the, which one? The fourth one. The fourth type. Or what appears to be. She has to do the outward act of a ghusl without an intention. Yes. So we are saying that wudu and ghusl require for a person to be Muslim because they require an intention. And the kafir's intention is not valid before he embraces Islam, his intention for the worship, that is. But there's an exception to this rule. I'm not talking about lifting the impurity, though. I'm talking about a ghusl that a kafir has to do. Has to. Yani, for the sake of the Muslim husband. For the sake of the Muslim husband, then this Jewish or Christian wife must do what appears to be a ghusl, or else he cannot have intercourse with her after her menses. Now, if she does that, and now he's able to have intercourse with her, so what does that mean? That means her ghusl was valid. What if she didn't do it right? It's not going to be valid. He still can't have intercourse with her. She doesn't do it right, like she has fingernail polish on. So it's not valid. So then, if you're confused here, you scratch your head, you might say, so what does that mean is valid? How's that? The answer is that means that it's recognized. Doesn't mean it's rewardable. Valid here means recognized. Now it's permissible for him to have intercourse with her after her menses. Is it clear? You said the ghusl for the non-Muslim would simply be a bath without the intention in this case. Yes, like I said, what appears to be a ghusl, the outward act of a ghusl. Exactly. What exactly looks like a valid ghusl, but without an intention. Amin wafiq. The second condition is at-tamyiz, the capacity to reason and discern. Yani, discernment or discerning. So the purification of a non-mumayyiz person, such as a young child or an insane person, is not valid. What's the exception to this rule? The purification of a non-discerning person, like a young child, like a baby, or an insane person, is not valid. What's the exception to this rule? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Child carrying the Quran? No, because that's not the purification. So the exception to this rule is when the guardian of such a person does the purification on the limbs of this ward, this small child or this insane person, and takes them around the Kaaba for nusuk, in Hajj or Umrah. You take your little baby, make sure all the najasa is clear, and you make the intention on the baby's behalf and wash the face and the arms, wipe the head, wash the feet. Same thing for the insane ward. Make the intention on their behalf, wash their face. You do that. You do it. They can't do it themselves. And then you take them around the Kaaba 7 times in a valid way. Then that's valid. And that's rewardable for that one. The third condition is the absence of anything which prevents the water from reaching the part that must be washed or wiped. What gets wiped in purification? I want 3 things. There's 3 things I want. If you can tell me all 3 in one answer, that's best. What gets wiped in purification? I'm not talking about istinja here. 10, 9, 8. So what is the question? The question is, what gets wiped in purification? What gets wiped in purification? I'm looking for 3 things. If you can give me all 3 in one answer, that's best. All right, so let's see here. Since I'm looking for 3 things, if it's not all 3, I'm just going to say no. But maybe you got one of them. So someone said here, the hair and wudu. No. Arms, face, and feet. No. Limbs, physical and spiritual impurities. No. There's a lot of guessing going on here. Face, hands, and injured part that has casts. That's not exactly how I'm looking for it. So what I'm looking for is to say You said hair, correct. Khufs, correct. Cast, correct. Hair gets wiped. Khufs get wiped. Cast gets wiped. Maybe I should say, what gets wiped with water in purification? What gets wiped with water? There's a difference between washing and wiping. What does it say here? The third condition is the absence of anything which prevents the water from reaching the part that must be washed or wiped. So my question was, what gets wiped? I meant what gets wiped with water. So when you make wudu, do you wipe your face? No, you wash your face. Even not rubbing. Rubbing is something else also. Rubbing is not washing. Washing means to make the water run over it. Rubbing is sunnah. So you don't wipe your face in wudu, you wash your face. Your arms, you wash your arms. Your head, you wipe your head. So that's something that gets wiped. Your feet, you wash your feet. Unless you have khufs. If you have khufs, then you wipe your khufs. You don't have to wash them. Khufs is the footgear. And what else? If you have a cast, then according to details, you're gonna have to wipe on your cast. Okay, so that's all clear now, inshallah. That was a good question then. Alhamdulillah. Is a band-aid considered a cast? It could be. Cast or bandage, even cream might be a cream you have. They all have the same judgment. Ace bandage, for example. Or some makeshift cast made out of twigs and vines to put your bone back while you're struggling out in the woods or something. Hence, if there was something preventing the water from reaching the part to be washed or wiped, such as grease sticking to the skin, because the water doesn't mix with it, so it's just going to run right over it. It's not going to touch what's under it. Purification is not valid. However, a substance that conceals the color of the skin but does not prevent water from reaching the body part, such as ink, does not prevent purification from being valid. So it became clear for us here, ink here, it means the trace of the ink, the trace of the ink. Because possible that ink will block the water. If it's the actual body of the ink. Like, did you ever have your pen bust on something? Let's say your skin, and have there a glop of ink right there on you. So it's possible that this body of ink will block the water from getting to your skin. But if it's just the trace of the ink on your skin, the color that is, this does not block the water from getting through. The fourth condition is for water to flow on the part that must be washed. Because that's the meaning of washing, not wiping. And it's not a condition to rub here. None of these conditions is rubbing. Neither is rubbing an integral of wudu, nor is it or ghusl. It's not an integral of wudu or ghusl. This is Shafi'i school. Nor is it a condition. So what's left then? It's sunnah, recommendation. The fourth condition is for water to flow on the part that must be washed while maintaining its natural properties, even if assisted by rubbing with the hand. And this part, while maintaining its natural properties, I'm not sure how to explain that. Even if assisted by rubbing with the hand, meaning if you have water on the limb and it's running water, it's a condition, because what you basically want to be mindful of is not to merely wipe a part that has to be washed. So wiping means that you just have wetness on the surface of your hand, for example, or you have a moist rag, for example, and then you just rub that over the other surface. That's wiping. Washing requires the water to be running water. Running water means able to run. So if you had water on your limb, and then if you just push it, it will move, then that's still valid. Yes, rubbing is obligatory in Maliki school. Therefore, wiping the part that must be washed will not suffice. The fifth condition is to use water that is pure in itself and purifying for others. Yani, I'd say purifying of others, of other things. Or, to use another word, a purifier of other things. The fifth condition is to use water that is pure in itself. That means not najis, filthy. And purifying of other things. We talked about that before. This is called absolute water. Well, I like the way some people put it. I used to always say absolute water or unrestricted water. But I like the way some people put it. Plain water. That's very clear. This is what's called plain water, i.e., that which we call water without any necessary restriction. As is the case with rainwater. Rainwater is plain water. And river water is plain water. And seawater, even though there's salt in there, it's still plain water. Water remains plain as long as it is not stripped of its name as a result of being mixed with a pure substance from which the water can be easily shielded. Like what? Like tea. Then you're not going to call it water anymore, although it's, I don't know what percentage, 98, 99%, more than 99% water. You're not going to call it water anymore. You're going to call it tea. And the leaf doesn't even dissolve in the water. It just changes it though when it's warm. So now it's not purifying anymore because it lost its name. So if you put enough sugar in there, you're going to call it sugar water. You're not going to call it water anymore. So water remains plain as long as it is not stripped of its name as a result of being mixed, fused, combined. Not merely changed, but actually mixed, fused with a pure substance from which the water can be easily shielded. If it's not fused, then you can still use that water. Like if there's oil in the water, you can still use that water. You say, if you pour table salt in the water until it tastes like salt water, would it still be considered water? As long as you can call it water, it will still be water. Yani, changing it, what does it say here? As long as it has not been stripped of its name as a result of being mixed. We're not saying it's not mixed with anything. We're saying it's not mixed to the point that you don't call it water merely anymore. So that means there's a threshold. As long as it is not stripped of its name as a result of being mixed with a pure substance from which the water can be easily shielded. From which the water can be easily shielded. That's important. Because when there's something you can't keep out of the water easily, then that's going to be pardoned. Like the moss or the algae or some insects, larvae or something, mosquitoes, things you can't keep out of the water easily are going to be excused. Something that's in the water's pathway, so there's nothing you can do, But when it's something that you can't keep out of the water easily, that means usually, then it's going to have an effect, like table salt or the like flour or milk, etc., ink. This means if the word water is no longer applicable to the liquid owing to its significant change, then it is no longer plain, period. Capital F here. For example, if the water were mixed with ink, here they said were, that's right, excuse me, instead of was. For example, if the water were mixed with milk, ink, or the like, uh, so no, that can't end the sentence there. This means if the word water is no longer applicable to the liquid, then it is no longer absolute. So, yani, I don't really like the way this sentence came out here. Let me see something here. This means if the word water, yani the name water is no longer applicable to the liquid, yani, I'm not going to call it water anymore because it changed so significantly, so drastically, then it is no longer plain. So I think this could be improved by saying here, for example, comma, take out, for example, here, and here, take this like and bring it all the way up here. So then it would read like this. This means if the word water is no longer applicable to the liquid, then it is no longer plain. Like if the water were mixed with milk or ink. That's it. This came out like this because they were following the Arabic. A mixable substance is visually indistinguishable from the water it was mixed in. Yani, that's the answer to a question. What constitutes being mixed, blended, that you can't distinguish the water from what's in it? You can't tell the difference between them by your naked eye. So let's stop here. We didn't finish this case, but I want to stop here. And we can start next time, insha'Allah ta'ala, from here. The fourth condition. We'll read from there and we'll repeat some of what we said and we'll keep going from there, insha'Allah. Any question?